Here's my detailed report for why I don't think we're ever really going to get to the bottom of the Epstein situation and why I don't think Pam Bondi is going to show us. Let's just get right into it. This might be hard for a lot of people who like Trump to admit, accept, or even pay attention to, but Trump has a habit of hiring people who let Epstein off the hook. He rewarded Alexander Acosta with the highest level position at the Department of Labor during his first term. And of course, Mr. Acosta was the famous prosecutor who let Epstein off with a plea deal in Florida. When Epstein got arrested and before he mysteriously disappeared, when the guards fell asleep and the camera turned off, who was the top prosecutor in America? Bill Barr. Not only did Bill Barr have personal conflicts of interest with the Epstein case due to his past association with the law firm Kirkland & Ellis, which represented Epstein in 2008 during his Florida investigation, and Barr deciding to remain involved in his New York City case, his father, citing this Forbes article, former FBI Assistant Director Frank Figliuzzi, tweeted Sunday that Barr's father hired Epstein in the 70s to teach mathematics at Manhattan's prestigious Dalton School. While Wikipedia says that it's not clear if Bill Barr's father was the one who hired Jeffrey Epstein, he definitely was the headmaster at the school where Epstein taught. It also adds in 1973, Barr published Space Relations, a science fiction novel about a planet ruled by oligarchs who engage in child sex slavery. It has been noted that the plot of the novel anticipates the crimes of Epstein and his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell. Wait, what? So that was Bill Barr's father. And he was in office when Epstein mysteriously disappeared, died, escaped. I'm not really sure. They said he died, of course, but who knows? What a coincidence that the attorney general that Trump picked has so many ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And if you want to get really oddly conspiratorial and add something that probably has nothing to do with it, when you type the words Epstein-Barr in Google, you'll find out that there's actually an Epstein-Barr virus. That's just bizarre. Okay, let's get to Pam Bondi, who replaced Matt Gaetz for attorney general in this term. So this is from a Times of India article about Pam Bondi. It said, did Pam Bondi let Jeffrey Epstein slide except bribe from Trump University? She was Florida's attorney general from 2011 to 2019. According to this quote from author and investigative journalist Kirby Summers, if you ever wonder how Jeffrey Epstein was able to walk the earth unprosecuted and have all his contacts sealed, look no farther than Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi is the reason Jeffrey Epstein and all his information is sealed in the state of Florida. Upon further research, I found out that Pam Bondi's critics say that Jeffrey Epstein's case could have been re-examined at a state level during her tenure as Florida's attorney general, but her office did not initiate any new significant investigations or prosecutions against him. So are you following so far? The first attorney general of Trump's administration had ties to Jeffrey Epstein, multiple, might I add. Pam Bondi just so happens to be the attorney general that people complained didn't do enough to look into Jeffrey Epstein's case. The most famous plea deal attorney was rewarded by Trump to be the Secretary of Labor. And one thing I find fascinating about the difference between Matt Gaetz and Pam Bondi, besides of course Pam Bondi's attorney experience and high-level experience in these positions, is that Matt Gaetz realized that Republicans and Democrats were passing anti-Semitism speech laws in which he completely opposed due to part of the Bible being deemed anti-Semitism, in which the press smeared him as anti-Semitic. Pam Bondi, on the other hand, has never taken this stance, and the same media that smeared Gaetz as anti-Semitic is celebrating the fact that he was replaced with Pam Bondi. And if you ever want to look into the weird Matt Gaetz controversy, one article that I recommend is Politico's The Tangled Tale of the Israel Consulate, the Dilbert Cartoonist, and the Matt Gaetz Case. Should we keep going? Here's a clip of new Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, famous podcaster, former Secret Service member for Hillary Clinton, and very popular Republican. Here's him on Tim Pool saying that somebody with really good intel that he really trusts says that Epstein for sure was a spy or agent of a country in the Middle East.
A year and a half after that, I'm in a green room at Fox, and I'm not going to say who because they didn't give me permission to share it, but the short story, but not who they are, says, you know, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, you sure of that? The person, let's say, is like, I'm absolutely sure of that. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know. But this person who's a very, very good reporter, I mean, aces, right? swore Epstein was either a witting or unwitting intelligence asset, and they may have had his plane wired up, and they're the ones who have all this stuff.
Ooh. I wonder what country that could possibly be. Well, according to Daily Mail, Daily Beast, and many others who reported this story, quote, Jeffrey Epstein boasted about being a Mossad agent like Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert, according to bombshell claims from ex-girlfriend. Is that true? I don't know. But here's what I will say, which I'm sure some people will falsely smear as anti-Semitic, but it's just the truth. Speaking of which, here's Dan Bongino's answer when they asked him what cause is dear to his heart.
That's right. What cause is dear to your heart?
Cause is dear to my Israel, defense of Israel.
What is number one?
So if an American citizen answers a question that the cause dearest to their heart is the defense of a foreign nation, do you think they're that interested in finding ties that are perhaps unpleasant? Let me give you an example because I can't speak for everyone, but me personally, I believe Israel has a right to exist. I have no hate in my heart whatsoever, and I'm just an honest person. Let's just say something happened again like the Lavon affair, which was a real event in history. For those who don't know, the Lavon affair was a failed Israeli covert operation. Part of a false flag operation, a group of Egyptian Jews were recruited by Israeli military intelligence to plant bombs inside Egyptian, American, and British-owned civilian targets, cinemas, libraries, and American educational centers. The bombs were timed to detonate several hours after closing time. The attacks were to be blamed on the Muslim Brotherhood, Egyptian communists, unspecified malcontents, or local nationalists, with the aim of creating a climate of sufficient violence and instability to induce the British government to retain its occupying troops in Egypt's Suez Canal zone. So they were going to plant bombs inside American-owned civilian targets and blame it on communists and the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm just saying, if something were to happen like that again, are you even allowed to talk about it? The Republican Party is so pro-Israel. They're almost more pro-Israel than they are America. If you said America did something, they'd be like, yeah, it's the deep state. But if you ever said it was our greatest ally, they'd probably freak out at you, call you an anti-Semite, and use you as an example to pass more anti-Semitism speech laws, which they're absolutely doing. Like Matt Gaetz noticed, even part of the anti-Semitism hate speech rules make part of the Bible when you talk about who killed Jesus, which is really weird, by the way, to pass a speech law in America, especially Republicans. But anyway, Matt Gaetz got replaced by Pam Bondi, who doesn't notice that or won't push back against that. Isn't that just fascinating? And whether you look at Kash Patel, Pete Hegseth, Elise Stefanik, or pretty much every single person that Trump hired, you'll notice that they all have this in common.
And Israel is one of our, if not our greatest ally in the world. And I'm so proud of what happened today. I've been to Israel twice as Attorney General.
That's right. What cause is dear to your heart?
Cause is dear to my Israel, defense of Israel.
We need America to wake up and prioritize Israel.
Anyone that wants to take the stage and talk about dual loyalty is dead wrong. What this organization represents, what Western civilization represents today, is an understanding that Zionism and Americanism are the front lines of Western civilization and freedom in our world today. And there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible. I don't know how it would happen. You don't know how it would happen, but I know that it could happen. That's all I know.
Pam, Democrats like Alan Dershowitz have sounded the alarm over the growing virulent strain of Jew haters in the Democrat Party. It appears their agents in the unfair press are carrying that water. It is dangerous, is it not?
Yeah, it's very dangerous, Chris. It's extremely dangerous. And, you know, you look around, the thing that's really the most troubling to me, these students in universities in our country, whether they're here as Americans.
Do you have concerns about the level of Israeli influence in our politics here in the United States of America?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a politician in political office, so I don't see much of that.
Because if you look at the anti-Semitic rot within the United Nations, there are more resolutions targeting Israel than any other country, any other crisis combined. And we have significant national security councils, the anti-Semitism. As long as I serve the American people, I will defend George Washington's vision of religious pluralism and freedom. Today, this means crushing anti-Semitism at home and supplying the state of Israel with what it needs, when it needs it, without conditions, without conditions, without conditions.
Elise Stefanik has a horrible rating when it comes to voting conservative, but she constantly brags that she always votes in favor of Israel.
That's why I'm proud to have sponsored or backed every measure to aid Israel that has come before the United States Congress. Every single one.
What do you call somebody that's not good from a conservative American standpoint, but has 100% accuracy for a foreign country? Can you say that she serves that country more than she serves America? Or is that considered anti-Semitism? Can you say that she works for lobbyists, or is that anti-Semitism? Do you understand what I'm saying? And this is what I would like to say to people like Tom Cotton that constantly just say, what's wrong with being a Zionist? I mean, it's Israel's right to defend itself and to exist. Sure.
Being a Christian Zionist, I'm not really sure why that is a bad thing. I'm a Christian. I'm a Zionist. Zionism is that the Jewish people deserve a homeland in the ancient Holy Land where they've lived since the dawn of history. Do you consider yourself a Christian Zionist?
Senator, I'm a Christian, and I robustly support the state of Israel and its existential defense, and the way America comes alongside them is a great ally.
Thank you. Because another protest.
But here's what they don't tell you when they frame it like this versus this, or good guys versus bad guys, or you don't want them to exist. What about Americans who just think you should prioritize America over that country? Not that you shouldn't help them, not that you shouldn't work with them in some way, that you have to prioritize your country over their country. Because if you don't, if something like the Lavon Fair happens again, no Republicans will talk about it. No Republicans will report on it. Republicans will then weaponize the Justice Department and the media to basically slander and attack anybody who does report on that stuff, because they're so in the bag for that country. They basically serve as a PR team for that country. It's gotten so bad that I read Israeli publication more than I read Zionist Republican publications. Zionist Republican publications feel more of a need to never ever do reporting on Israel than they do their own country or their own party. In publications like Haaretz, they talk about stuff, including the Hannibal Directive, which seems like a pretty big deal, except for the fact that almost no Western press will talk about it. And they're getting sanctioned and punished in their own country for having the balls to report on something that would not be considered favorable to the narrative. And once again, to be clear, this is my whole issue. When you pass speech laws in America for one race, one religion, and one country, and you pass anti-protest and boycott laws for one country that you don't even pass for your own country, but then you call somebody anti-Semitic for even saying that it's happening or saying that that country has priority over our country, it just gets a little weird. And this is the thing with most Republican Zionists. No matter how much they try to spin it, I don't care that they support Israel. I don't care that they defend Israel. I don't care that they like Israel. I don't care that Israel's an ally, and I believe Israel has a right to defend itself. But it's with our taxpayer dollars, and if you talk about it, they call you anti-Semitic. Thomas Massey is the best congressman America has, one of the only good ones, constantly smeared as an anti-Semite, lobbied against by AIPAC. Even the Republican Jewish Committee says they'll spend unlimited amount of money to stop him from becoming senator and taking Mitch McConnell's spot. But I thought the left and the right were so different, right? The right-wing people are totally on our side, except that they're trying to block the best Republican we have because he prioritizes America over Israel, something that almost nobody in Trump's cabinet does. And I'm not saying that it says that, but let's just say the Epstein files say what that Daily Mail headline said. Do you think Pam Bondi wants to show the American public? Do you think Kash Patel wants to show the American public? Do you think Donald Trump, who gets hundreds of millions of dollars from pro-Israel donors, passes Israeli Jewish speech laws, wants to basically take Gaza for himself or for America? I don't know what he wants to do with it. Do you think Donald Trump wants people to see that? Everybody knows about Monica Lewinsky. Have you ever seen this headline? where a book talks about this, and there's going to be a lot of people that can't even fathom what I'm saying or come to grips and terms with it, because most Republican media is fake opposition. They have a bunch of fake talking heads, fake discussions, fake left and right paradigm, fake conclusions, war propaganda, and the way they get it to work with the right is by just constantly putting people on television that are insane on the left and being like left versus right, programming you like Pavlov's dog into not even being able to understand that America is essentially being taken over. And if you even say that it is being taken over, then you will be smeared as hateful, even if you're not hateful. Trump's FBI is already being weaponized against people like Max Blumenthal, who are big critics of Israel, and I'm not surprised. And if you want me to be honest, as somebody who voted for Trump, as somebody who knows it's either Trump or Kamala, so of course I'm going to want Donald Trump. I think he's better for the country. He's more an adult. But I'm not delusional. I don't think it's left versus right, good guys versus bad guys. I think it's like the Bolsheviks, the communists, and the psychopaths versus the Zionists. And I don't really have a dog in the race, but Trump's the closest I can get. With that being said, all these things they're doing with USAID and all these things that they're doing with the UN, it seems awesome on the front, because in many cases it is. The UN sucks. USAID is insane. I'm not saying it's good at all. It's horrible. But is Trump and his party doing all these rearrangements for America, or are they doing it for Israel? Take based Mike Lee for an example. He talked about how bad the UN is, but when he used an example, he wasn't talking about for America, he was talking about for Israel. And I understand that some of these things can benefit both countries, and if so, that's cool. I just want to be able to have this conversation out loud without being called hateful, without being smeared by right-wing and left-wing press, without being basically blacklisted from the Republican Party, which I have been since 2019 because I've reported on stuff like this. If you want me to be honest, everybody in the Republican movement knows about this. They just know if they talk about it, they can't get a job. They have to do what Dan Bongino did. And I don't know if he knows it or if he's just playing dumb. I have no idea. God bless Dan Bongino. But it's like, Epstein worked for someone in the Middle East. I mean, who? I wonder who. Epstein. Ghislaine Maxwell. I don't think it could possibly be more obvious. And if you want to get even more controversial and honest, J.D. Vance recently put out a post talking about Ukraine and saying that when you come to America, you should have loyalty to America and leave your foreign loyalties. There's no such thing as a hyphenated American. It says either be an American or don't. There is no Ukrainian American. Do you like this country? Are you loyal to the country? J.D. Vance put out a great tweet. If he were to say that, though, about Israel and Israelis or Jewish people with loyalty to Israel or even Christians with loyalty to Israel, he would be smeared as an anti-Semite. It's like you have to say all these things but actually not mean them, or you have to be against foreign aid but not for them, against speech laws but not for them, against dual loyalty but not for them. If you even talk about dual loyalty with them, you're an anti-Semite. So every politician is either playing stupid or is probably afraid to say that out loud. I bet J.D. Vance knows what I'm talking about, but if he said what I'm saying, his career's over. He wouldn't have ever been able to get there or ever been able to get favorable press to get there. With that being said, Chris Menahan, and I saw WikiLeaks recently, published a story going on in Australia, and it's very relevant because a Jewish Australian army officer was stripped of his top secret security clearance by a review tribunal when he found to have divided loyalties between Australia and Israel, and posed an unacceptable, avoidable risk to security due to the threat of recruitment by Mossad. In his defense, the officer told the tribunal, Zionism is an essential theme within Judaism. Judaism mandates the loyalty of a Jew to his people in the land of Israel. The Australian government is aware that every Jew harbors a varying degree of loyalty to Israel. Some have a higher and more overt level of loyalty than others. This is a latent risk that the Australian government must naturally accept when employing Jews. And I believe there was some part of that, I read it earlier, saying that if the Australian government's going to do that to him, then they're going to have a problem with a lot of Jewish people in politics, and that's going to be considered anti-Semitism. This is really a landmark case, even though it's happening in Australia, because in Israel, you have to give up your dual passport in order to serve in their Knesset, but in America, not only can you have dual passports to multiple countries, like a lot of politicians do, but you'll be smeared as an anti-Semite if you ever want to talk about it. You could talk about it if it's like Ilhan Omar, maybe Dr. Oz to Turkey, that's fine. But if you ever talk about Israel, then it's anti-Semitism. In fact, the anti-Semitism hate speech laws, the IHRA laws that are being passed all around the Western world and even in South America, they state that you're not allowed to suppose any dual loyalty supposition to a Jewish citizen is considered anti-Semitic. So you're not allowed to say that any Jewish American has dual loyalty. But what you notice in the Zionist Republican Party is that if a Jewish person doesn't have dual loyalty, they freak out at them. So it's like the Republicans want every Jewish person to have dual loyalty, or else people like Trump will say that they're not loyal, or that they're, why do they vote for the Democratic Party? But in reality, they're passing a speech law that says that they can't even say that. Let me give you an example. Dave Smith is a Jewish American who prioritizes America over Israel or Jewish people worldwide. He's like a real patriot, in my opinion. Dave Smith constantly gets smeared as an anti-Semite. So many people are mad that he doesn't have loyalty to Israel. And even though RFK is cool, he asked RFK about the influence in politics of Israel. And listen to RFK's response.
Do you have concerns about the level of Israeli influence in our politics here in the United States of America?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a politician in political office, so I don't see much of that.
He froze like an icicle, and then he's like, I can't speak on that.
I'm not a politician.
He says he's not a politician. He's not a politician, but he ran for office. He's not a politician, but he is now. He's not a politician, but he talks about Ukraine. He's not a politician, but he talks about pharma. He literally ran to be a politician, in which you say, I'm running to serve you. So you never stand up there and say, I'm not a politician. I don't know. He knows. Everybody knows. He just doesn't want to say. Because if you say, it's considered hate speech. Are you noticing a theme? Are you noticing a pattern? If you haven't noticed this theme or pattern to this point, you're either completely brainwashed by some sort of fake opposition that is probably scrambling your brain to never figure this out and to think every person who's pointing this out is just so hateful when they're not. I mean, it's literally the most obvious part of politics right now. But there's billions and trillions of dollars circling around in politics to prevent you from seeing that this is happening. So Candace Owens starts talking about stuff like this. She gets fired and banned from Australia. Tucker Carlson barely talks about this, but kind of talks about it, and everybody knows he's kind of talking about it in the most safe way possible. He gets smeared as an anti-Semite. Huge swaths of the fake conservative movement are teaming up to try to brand him the woke right because he's not just playing ball. I'm part Italian. Imagine if every time you noticed Italian people were doing something, I came out and said, that's anti-Italophobia, that's anti-Italophobia, and then tried to make you donate to some Italian group. Wouldn't it seem a little bit suspicious and weird? I mean, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but imagine if Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were Chinese or both Saudi Arabian. Would you suppose they might be working for China or Saudi Arabia? And then imagine if dozens of people in Congress had dual passports to China or Saudi Arabia, and they were pushing for Chinese or Saudi Arabian speech laws or foreign aid to China or Saudi Arabia. Wouldn't it seem a little odd? But there's a multi-decade, multifaceted brainwashing campaign to prevent Republicans from waking up to this reality. A lot of it comes from the churches. I don't want to get too much into it now because I don't think it will really serve this video well, but so many older Republicans are so sure of themselves because they learned this version of Christianity in which they have to worship this country, but they've never thought to what extent it makes sense or what that verse even means, because if they were to question what they've been saying and who they've been listening to now, it's like their whole life is a lie, so it's not that easy for people to do that. But as a Christian, no matter what you think, don't you think it's a little bit weird that Republicans have been lobbied to pass a definition of anti-Semitism that includes the word Jesus in it, and you can't talk about the death of Jesus in a certain way? Then it'll be considered anti-Semitism. And when Trump passes an executive order, he's in an office with Robert Kraft, whose organization paid for this ad with Snoop Dogg and Tom Brady, and Alan Dershowitz. Like, that's not weird to people that so-called Christian politicians are passing hate speech laws that deem biblical discussion hate speech. And one of the only politicians who noticed it, Matt Gaetz, gets fired for a politician who vows to crack down on people who protest Israel, and one of our best congressmen, Thomas Massie, is being constantly attacked by Jewish groups on both sides of politics for the crime of being the only congressman who actually serves America and prioritizes America over Ukraine, Israel, or anyone, and has a consistent constitutional stance. Let me know what you think in the comments section. God bless you. I don't think we'll ever learn the truth about Jeffrey Epstein. I don't think they'll tell us the truth about the JFK files, whatever those say. I hope I'm wrong, because I would love to see, but I won't be shocked if it never comes to light. However, if enough people start to love America and prioritize America first, things will change. And every country has a right to want to exist and not deteriorate. And in this country, look at what the Trump election did. Trump and the Republicans won the House, the Senate, the presidency, the popular vote, and the culture with podcasts, etc. And then everybody starts shifting. They start getting rid of DEI. They start taking pronouns out of the Bible. They're admitting defeat because enough people woke up to become this ideology. That's how the world works. I'm at peace with everything. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not trying to hate at all. I'm just simply stating whether people want to talk about it today or whether they even understand what I'm talking about today. This is the type of discussion that'll age well, because the people that get mad by it are 5 to 6 years behind what's really going on in politics. And if you want me to add something that I didn't add, Trump pardoned the sentence of a foreign spy's handler, and that spy flew back to Israel on a private jet that was owned by Trump's biggest donor at the time, the Adelson family. Flying foreign spies back home on a donor's jet. But don't talk about it, folks, because that's just hate speech, because that's what everybody says and thinks. How is that hate speech? It has nothing to do with hating anything. It's just crazy. It's so in your face, yet nobody reports on it because you can't say, but because when it comes to the press and politics, well, you know what? I can't even really explain how that works either, because that's one of the anti-Semitism speech laws that they're passing through. So let's just say, yeah, none of that's true. Everything's just hateful. Everything's just so horrible and hateful. And, the truth is now hate speech in this country, because that's what Republicans want to do on behalf of the country that they really like. God bless you. Have a beautiful day. I'll be back with more videos soon, and I appreciate your consideration.